Now, he's just published a book called The Height of Prophet Adam at the Crossroads of Science and Scripture. And this is my copy, which I have. I've read it all. Very good indeed. And this book explores scholarly efforts to treat the conflict between Hadith regarding Prophet Adam's height and the scientific data. And we'll read out the conflict between science and Hadith, which is for many a crisis of faith, many Muslims today.
I hope the viewers don't get lost in the specifics of this hadith. The hadith which states Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Prophet Adam with a height of 60 cubits, which is give or take 90 feet. And later on, the hadith states that humankind has been decreasing in height ever since that occurrence. Though my research focuses on this specific hadith, what I hope to achieve is provide a framework and model that Muslims can employ when engaging with problematic hadith in general. And
why bother with the specifics? Train your perception, not investigate reality. Just train your mind, and everything will work out. He says, what I hope to achieve is to provide a framework and model Muslims can employ when engaging with problematic hadith. When dealing with apparent scientific errors in hadith, it's not the context or essence of the specific error that should concern Muslims. Instead, Muslims should learn how to shelter their faith in the face of those scientific errors. Learn how to be gullible. Do not bother with the science. He will teach Muslims how to rationalize away the scientific errors instead of actually dealing with these scientific errors. Train in some kind of sophistry that will make you impervious to reality and truth. The objective here is not addressing truth, is staying a Muslim in the face of scientific errors. Muntasir, Zaman, and Paul Williams, like Hamza Georges and Sobur Ahmed before them, are teaching Muslims how to be confident idiots, useful tools in the cause of Islam. I call that the science of gullibility or blind faith.
though we're going to be analyzing a specific hadith, I prefer the title, The Anatomy of Hadith Hermeneutics, because we can employ this to deal with other quote-unquote scientific issues or even moral conundrums that people face when dealing with the hadith. Reason and revelation, which were often put against one another, there isn't really a conflict between reason and revelation. Rather, it's the weight of reason that's perhaps at loggerheads with the weight of revelation. And my argument is we can extend this analogy to empirical concerns as well.
There isn't really a conflict between reason and revelation. Rather, it's about the epistemic weight of reason contrast the epistemic weight of revelation. If by principle there is no conflict between reason and revelation, then you admit blind faith. In other words, revelation is impervious to reason.
How can I use my knowledge of science and archaeology to understand the Quran and Hadith? And what do I do at a point of conflict? Do I choose one over the other? Or is it upon closer examination that it's the weight of archaeology and science that I should be questioning, or the weight of this particular point of revelation?
Truth is not concerned with how you group principles in your mind relating to epistemic weight. You actually need to investigate the individual merit of each claim and see whether it corresponds to reality. Just because you think religion is very important, that doesn't mean everything under this banner is true by definition. I mean, let's follow your claim, you idiot. Let's see where your claim leads. Christianity claims revelations. According to you, we shouldn't be concerned with individual claims. We should just accept it because the epistemic value of revelations is very high. Okay, welcome to Christianity then. Now I followed your argument and you just became Christian. That's how stupid is your argument. Muslims value their state of mind of being a Muslim more than pananthropic principles that define the human civilization. They are willing to sacrifice in the altar of feeling nice in their delusion anthropic values like truth, morality, science, philosophy, etc. They are like drug addicts. They care about their mental state more than this world.
And this is not based upon our own whims and desires. This is actually based upon people of knowledge, discussions with people of knowledge. This is based upon the Quran, this is based upon the Sunnah, and this is something which should be obvious, but it's not really that obvious. Okay, I want full attention and full participation. These are aspects of Islam that we all believe in and accept. What if I come along and I tell you something? There is a Sahih narration of the Prophet ﷺ that you have to wear a yellow hat on Sundays. Hypothetically. Raise your hand if you're going to wear a yellow hat on Sundays. Why? Because the Prophet said so. Whether you understand it or not, you do understand he's a messenger. Likewise, there is a Muslim who is looking at the world through lenses, green lenses, and he's looking at the world as green. And there is a non-Muslim who is looking at the world through red lenses. So what's happening in the conversation is the Muslim is saying, this is green, this is green, this is green. The non-Muslim is saying, this is red, this is red, this is red. Why is that? The reason is, this is the case is because the Muslim is looking at the world through the lenses of La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. He believes that this man called Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is the final messenger of God. Therefore, whatever he says is true.
This is the contrast of Islamic blind faith versus Western skepticism. The civilization of moral philosophy, reason, and truth versus the civilization of superstition and dogmatic authority, replacing moral conscience with blind, amoral cult rules.
But for the sake of understanding, because many of us, we see a brother that's selling drugs, we see a brother that maybe murdered another brother, and we say, look at these people, look how rubbish they are. Habibi, let me tell you something in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As far as sin is concerned, yeah? The one that sells drug, good or bad? Just very quickly, good or bad? Bad. How about the murderer? How about the one who commits adultery, zina? What about the one who rapes a child? What about the one who drinks alcohol? What about the one who does the biggest of the kabair, good or bad? This person, one person that commits all of these sins, He commits all of these sins on a daily basis. But he prays is better in the eyes of Allah than the one that doesn't commit any of these sins but doesn't pray.
Corrupting truth when it comes to history by replacing the value of truth with propaganda erases the human historic conscience and therefore erases our civilization, our historic memory.
So Christian Europe fought a defensive war against the Nazis. It isn't obvious that that was wrong.
I don't think that was, I wouldn't say that's defensive. I wouldn't say that's defensive.
Well, okay, fine, but I understand the concept of defensive war.
And, well, when America got involved in World War II, it was not under immediate threat by Germany, and they colonized it.
Replacing scientific reason with superstition disables our defense against the survival of the fittest world. A cult that is doing all this is obviously not on the side of the human civilization. It's meant to destroy the human civilization. Islam is a toxic idea, a toxic meme that infects the mind and makes it act contrary to our social, mental, and biological fitness. What are the things that do that in nature? Viruses. A regular virus infects the body and makes it work for the preservation and the well-being of the virus, in the cost of our own health and well-being. The same way there are mental viruses. Simple as that, guys. The philosophical codification of Islam attack directly the first principles. Reason directly, morality directly, philosophy directly, truth directly, history directly. Okay. If you corrupt all these things, then there is no human civilization. Simple as that. It's that simple. If we let Islam unchecked, is the kind of virus that can destroy the human civilization. Simple as that.
And just of course, also science itself is not a static body of knowledge. It's constantly developing and changing. And as you referenced in the book with Thomas Kuhn, the American philosopher of science, who talked about paradigm shifts. Science itself goes through revolutions in its worldview. So to hitch one's understanding to a particular view of science now may be out of date, even in a year's time or 50 years' time. So that's another complexity on this as well.
Yeah. And I think
my parents are not Muslim. My wife is in the audience and she...
That is the moronic argument Hamza Georges first put forward, that when science contradicts the Quran, we trust the Quran because science is changing. Yeah, let me tell you what's the problem with that, Paul. It's a non sequitur. Just because science doesn't deal with absolute truth, that doesn't mean it cannot judge the Quran. Okay, it's a non sequitur, my friend. Just because science doesn't deal with absolute truth, that doesn't mean it cannot destroy Islam. When it comes to truth, science is the Mount Everest, Islam is an ant. Okay, just because the Mount Everest is not absolutely big, that doesn't mean it cannot crush an ant.
You can pray for your parents. I can't pray for my dad when he died.
And it has a qalb, a heart, has an aql, and the intellect is a function of the heart in Islamic tradition. And it has a fitrah, and the fitrah is clouded. And within the fitrah, the innate disposition, there are forms of proto-knowledge in the Islamic tradition that God is a reality and that He's worthy of worship. But that clouded. So it could be that a sound, rational argument, philosophical argument, whatever, can uncloud your innate disposition to awaken the truth within, or it could be something else, or it could be a combination of things. So when you ask me, it needs to be demonstrated, well, I need to find out who you are, because I don't know where your cloud is. Maybe you need a rational argument. Maybe you need a good hug. Maybe you need some love. Maybe you need some really strong Quranic verses to wake you up, because the reason for your disbelief is arrogance, right? Because the reason for your disbelief is arrogance, right? Because the reason for your disbelief is arrogance, right? To find out who you are, because I don't know where your cloud is. Maybe you need a rational argument. Maybe you need a good hug. Maybe you need some love. Maybe you need some really strong Quranic verses to wake you up, because the reason for your disbelief to find out who you are, because I don't know where your cloud is. Maybe you need a rational argument. Maybe you need a good hug.
If we accept the evolutionary trait that made our species dominant in this world and will define the survival of our species is our intellect, which is a no-brainer, if we also accept that Islam corrupts objective reasoning with philosophical codifications meant to serve an idea instead of our species, the well-being of our species, in other words, humans serving the idea instead of ideas serving humans, which is again a no-brainer that is happening with Islam, is therefore imperative to sustain and suppress this toxic idea that clearly goes against the well-being of our species. Thank you very much.